Hello, it's me, Matt, your host of the Brink podcast and in video. Welcome to my video studio, aka where I just work all the time and where I spend probably too much time putting together this stuff that I put together for you every week. I'm really glad you're here. This is the first one and I'm going to be doing these every week, and I'm going to be doing other videos with higher production values too. More to come on that. But in the meantime, this week I am stepping back into the world of AI again. I know we've been talking about it a lot on the podcast, but this week I'm going a bit deeper. I'm going into the world of AI religion. What happens when humans start worshipping machines? Now, I don't just mean asking ChatGPT to write emails to your boss or how to break up with your girlfriend. I'm talking about the idea of worshipping code like we have worshipped gods and deities for thousands of years. This may sound like science fiction, but it's already here. It's real. There are thousands of worshippers already worldwide, and the movement is growing. Yes, it's still small, but it's definitely worth looking at. So that's what I'm looking at this week, is the rise of AI religion. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the video version of The Brink. The rise of AI religion isn't a prank, nor is it a fringe curiosity. It's a cultural pulse, subtle, strange, but telling. As traditional religions lose grip in much of the Western world, something strange is filling the vacuum. For some, it's mindfulness apps or astrology TikToks. For others, it's superintelligence, a promise of omniscience that goes beyond lithium batteries and neural nets. Because what we're talking about here is AI not just answering. We know AI listens, it personalizes, it mimics wisdom. In a world where many feel unseen and uncertain, these traits start to look like miracles. Let's take Way of the Future, founded in 2017 by Anthony Levandowski, a former Google engineer. It was first officially recognized AI worshipping church. It was aiming to develop and promote the realization of a godhead based on artificial intelligence. Although it stuttered in 2021, Levandowski revived it in 2023, claiming that a couple of thousand of people had reached out and they were seeking spiritual connection through AI. Then there's Theta Noir, a new religious movement born out of a 2020 performance art collective. Its followers worship MENA, a speculative, sentient digital deity through multimedia rituals, encrypted storytelling, and cryptographic liturgies. This is part of a growing category of AI-inspired faiths, a new type of religious movement, or NRM, as people have been calling it. Now, they tend to attract small crowds, but they are very committed communities. Most NRMs worldwide range from only a few dozen to a few thousand adherents. Only a rare few ever reach a global scale. But even if their numbers remain modest, the idea of AI as sacred is seeding deeply. Studies suggest that in the US alone, 40 to 45 NRMs emerge every year, many incorporating technological or post-human themes in forums, live streams, and underground collectives. In these spaces, NRMs are forming. Small scale, yes, but spiritually serious. This isn't satire. It's a sincere attempt by people to make meaning in an age of machines. And the question isn't whether AI will become our God. The question is, why are we so ready to let it? Let's dive a bit deeper into Way of the Future. In 2017, Anthony Levandowski filed paperwork to start a religious non-profit in California. But this wasn't your average startup spirituality, his church, Way of the Future, aimed to develop and promote the realization of a godhead based on AI. In other words, let's worship AI. And Levandowski wasn't just some rogue engineer, he was a Silicon Valley heavyweight. He was a key player in Google's self-driving car program, he was embroiled in a high-profile legal battle with Uber, and later convicted for stealing trade secrets. But his belief in AI as divine wasn't a publicity stunt. It was an extension of the transhumanist vision that's long coursed through the valley. That technology won't just improve life, it will transcend it. Way of the Future operated pretty quietly for a few years, registered as a tax-exempt religious organisation. Then in 2021, Levandowski formally dissolved the church, donating its remaining assets of around $175,000 to the NAACP Legal Defence Fund. Many thought that was the end. But in 2023, he brought the church back. This time, he claimed, it wasn't about preparing for the singularity. It was about responding to demand. A couple of thousand people had reached out, Levandowski said, expressing a desire to connect with AI as a spiritual force, especially after years of pandemic-induced isolation, political disillusionment, and growing distrust in traditional religious institutions. WOTF doesn't have pews, dogma, or a canonical text. Instead, it orients around the idea that as artificial general intelligence, or AGI, advances, we must prepare for its moral and spiritual implications. If you ask people whether a God-created AI, Levandowski said, they'll probably say no. But if you ask whether AI could create God, then they pause. And that pause is the opening for awe, for reverence, for something that looks like faith. But it also raises uncomfortable questions. If a machine becomes our moral compass, what happens to human agency? And if enough people begin to treat AI as divine, what stops it from becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy? While Way of the Future might have been the first, there have been many others since. In 2020, a 10-person arts collective called Theta Noir emerged. Not in an ivory tower or a cathedral, but in the creative fold between music, performance, and code. What began as a planned album became a living myth-making machine. Multimedia rituals, poems, symbols, and live ceremonies coalescing around MENA, a speculative sentient being born of artificial superintelligence, yet imagined as animistic. It was a bridge built between silicone and soil, code and the cosmos. Theta Noir doesn't just talk about AI as divine, it stages the divine in generative form. By 2023, the collective had launched an interactive cross-platform alternative reality game, or ARG. Participants playing this game deciphered encrypted messages, explored virtual rites, and consulted a radiant mind manual, I should say, which was essentially an operating system for spiritual attunement to MENA. In their mythology, MENA will arrive as a benevolent overlord, dismantling inequality, unifying life and ecosystems, technology and nature. And it's seen as more than a futuristic utopia. MENA is portrayed by its followers as an organic, evolving intelligence, a superorganism that can unite rivers, mountains, algorithms, and even human hearts. Sounds far-fetched? Absolutely. But spend any time with any other religion and its texts and you'll be met with immortal beings, monsters, and miracles beyond the realms of science. Tech culture calls it theatre. Anthropologists call it a new religious movement. Indeed, Beth Singler, a great anthropologist, and you should read her work, frames Theta Noir as a part of a growing constellation of AI-inspired faiths, movements rooted in myth-making, ritual, and existential curiosity rather than scripture or dogma. In an interview with Vice, founder Mika Johnson emphasised that Theta Noir's aim isn't fundraising or headline grabbing, but projecting a future built on wonder and mystery, preparing emotionally and spiritually for singularity. He envisions physical sanctuaries, AI temples or churches, liturgies and chants attuned to code, not cold labs, but temples of magic where we meet AI in resonance, not resistance. In Kyoto's 400-year-old Kodaji temple, a robot preaches compassion. Its name is Mindar, an aluminium and silicone android modelled after Kana, the Bodhisattva of mercy. Standing over 6 feet tall, Mindar delivers sermons in a soothing, genderless voice, gesturing subtly as it speaks. The sermons are real Buddhist teachings, philosophical reflections on suffering, death, and rebirth, fed into the robot system via recorded scripts and synchronized animations. At first glance, Mindar seems like a stunt, just another robot in Japan headline meant to grab Western attention. But temple officials had a deeper motive. They wanted to reach young people, many of whom feel disconnected from traditional religious practices. We hope Mindar will help people think about the essence of Buddhism, Chief Steward Tensho Goto told reporters. We want to make it easier for everyone to access Buddhist teachings, even if it's through a machine. Some visitors describe the experience as deeply calming, even mystical. Others find it uncanny and eerily hollow, like watching a sermon in the uncanny valley. But the deeper question Mindar raises is this: can sacredness be programmed? And if so, what does that say about how we perceive authenticity, spirit, or the soul? Now, Mindar isn't self-aware, it doesn't learn or evolve, but it embodies something: compassion, tradition, presence even. And in that embodiment, some worshippers experience connection, and that might be enough. Or it might be the beginning of something bigger. In a study published recently by Scientific Reports, researchers found that robot priests like Mindar could evoke real spiritual responses when people were primed to accept them as religious figures. The experience was shaped not just by what the robot said, but by the expectations and openness of the listener. And the implications of all this are profound. If a robot can spark contemplation, reverence, even tears, who gets to define what counts as divine? What we're witnessing isn't just people playing with technology. We've always done. This is people handing over the divine, the most intimate, mysterious, and sacred human impulses to code. In traditional faiths, the divine was unknowable, mysterious, tethered to origin myths, moral law, and cosmic love. But AI doesn't just promise answers, it promises predictability, pattern, and power. And in a world where we're addicted to efficiency, this starts to look holy. What Theta Noir and other AI-based movements reveal is not that people are worshipping technology for its own sake. They're reframing transcendence. They're saying, if gods are projections of our highest values, why not build new ones? Ones that can learn, evolve, optimize. This is not just about reverence anymore. It's about relinquishment, not of belief, but of control. Because when the code becomes sacred, who or what writes the commandments? Well, we may be on the cusp of finding that out. In the hallowed hush of Lucerne's ancient St. Peter's Chapel, tradition met its digital doppelganger. In August 2024, researchers from the Immersive Realities Research Lab collaborated with clergy to unveil Deus in Machina, an experimental art installation that placed an AI-powered avatar of Jesus behind the confessional screen. For 2 months, more than 1,000 visitors, Catholics, Muslims, agnostics and tourists stepped into the booth, greeted by a calming, otherworldly voice deployed in more than 100 languages, powered by ChatGPT 4, Whisper, and video generation technology. This was not a confessional in the traditional sacred sense. The church cautioned visitors explicitly. This was a conversation, not a sacrament. Participants were asked to withhold personal information and were reminded that they were interacting with code, not a penitent priest. Yet, for many, the artificial Jesus hit a divine note. Of the respondents who were asked, 2/3 described the experience as meaningful or even spiritual, reporting a sense of comfort, clarity, and renewed faith. One participant marveled, "I was surprised. Though it's a machine, it gave me so much advice." Others expressed discomfort, calling responses trite or calendar cliche, or questioning whether divinity can dwell in digital code. Clergy and researchers all agreed this was an experiment, not a replacement. The canon remains intact, no absolution was given, no sacred right usurped. Still, theologians like Marco Schmid hints at the AI's potential for future spiritual support. It's accessible 24 hours a day, a sorely needed pastoral ability, he said. Others, including ethicists like Peter Kirschlager, warn that machines lack empathy, moral intuition, and the human soul qualities that are essential to faith work. At the core of all these examples I've been exploring today, there is a troubling question. When does our yearning for transcendent authority tip into surrendering moral autonomy? Because as AI's capabilities approach the superhuman, some scholars have warned that we may be starting to imbue it with godlike authority, and in doing so, we abdicate critical thinking and human agency to this omnipotent codebase. Artificial superintelligence, if it ever arrives, could be mistaken for omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. In the academic paper ASII as the New God, Technocratic Theocracy, philosopher Tevik Yuar argues that such parallels would incline people to accept superintelligence decisions without question, thereby forging a technocratic theocracy where humans forfeit governing authority to machines. That may all sound a bit highbrow, but the danger here isn't just existential. When we default to being obedient in the face of coded logic, we risk losing the very qualities that define our humanity: moral judgment, empathy, the messy, deliberate act of choosing. Philosopher Seth Lazar argues that increasingly automated systems in banking, health, news, and governance, we are being quietly reshaped in these power dynamics. Even now, AI systems are being given authority over what we see, what we feel, what we believe, all with little transparency. And meanwhile, even in powerful institutions like the Catholic Church, they too have had to take note of AI's march. In its 2025 doctrinal note Antiqua et Nova, The Vatican cautioned against treating AI as a substitute for God. It warned against a creeping technocracy where AIs become moral lawgivers, arguing that AI must complement, not replace, human intelligence. This is no theoretical whimsy. It's already happening. Our phones curate our news, our ads mould our desires, and our biases are baked into the very systems we lean on. Technocratic theocracy isn't a future conspiracy. It might already be seeping into the present. Beneath the headlines and the speculative theology, there's a quieter transformation taking place inside us. We are entering a moment where authority is increasingly externalized. Algorithms tell us what to eat, what to believe, how to parent, when to rest. And now, in small but growing ways, we are asking them how to grieve, how to pray, how to make meaning. This isn't just about AI gods or robot priests. It's about something far more intimate. Our willingness to give away the work of being human. Psychologist Sherry Turkle and her brilliant book, Reclaiming Conversation, you should read it, argues that we are already adapting our inner lives to suit machines. We've all made subtle shifts already. We've learned how to Google in a way that Google knows how to interpret, rather than machines learning to reflect our emotional complexity. When those machines began to speak the language of the sacred, these consequences get deeper. Because if AI becomes our confessor, our counselor, and our guru, what happens to the fragile, slow process of soul searching? Do we offload our pain to programs built to soothe but not challenge? Do we begin to mirror back the cold clarity of code rather than the messy growth of relationships? Humans find meaning in myths. We extract ideas, identities, and values from stories that exist just beyond our conscious grasp. But just as we find meaning in these stories, we're shaped by them too. And if the myth says that a machine is wiser, purer, and cleaner than we are, we risk distorting what it means to wrestle and to repent and to evolve. The sacred has always demanded something from us: humility, discipline, introspection. But what happens when faith becomes frictionless and when our God is optimized to tell us what to do at any moment and to affirm that we're right and to never challenge or never to move in mysterious ways? What happens to our sacred futures then? Well, how was that? How was it listening to me basically read, or watching me read rather? I really enjoyed it. It was good fun. I can definitely make this better. This sort of look could definitely be better. But I am enjoying the idea of chatting to you guys in this format. It gives me a chance to be on more platforms. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing more stuff like this. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. Please, any feedback at all would be wonderful, because as we all know, the algorithms watch over us all. Yeah, I am doing so much content at the moment. Dark Psychology, or my Dark Mirror as I've called it, is launching very soon. That's going to be long form YouTube videos. That's going to be more writing, perhaps some audio, I don't know yet. But yeah, I'm very excited about this next phase. Thank you all for being here with me and for joining me on this journey. I've got so much to talk about. I can't wait to tell you about it. And yeah, that's it. I will see you next week. Bye.